So I used to hear gunshots all the time where I lived in Oakland, California. It wasn't like every day or anything. It was probably, I don't know, once every 2 weeks, definitely at least once a month, you would hear gunshots. There was one time where I was actually about to take out the trash right outside of my house. The trash cans are on the sidewalk right in front of where my apartment was. And right before I was about to go out the door, I hear a ton of gunshots basically right outside my house. There was like one or two houses down. I just hear one fully automatic gun like brr, 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 and then you could hear a second gun like pop, pop, pop. And the shots were going on for a while. It was for sure like over 100 shots had went off. Like a lot of shots went off. After it happened, went outside, all the neighbors come out to like see what happened. There were bullet holes or bullet shells all over the street, like littered in the street. My neighbor's house across the street had like a fence in front of the front yard, and then this metal door that was going into the yard that was on the sidewalk. There was a bullet hole going into the framing of the metal door. My roommate's car that was parked actually right where our garbage cans were, right where I was about to go, his back window got shot out by a bullet, and apparently there was some damage done to some cars way down the block. My apartment was near the corner, and this stuff is just really, really common in Oakland. I lived there for like 15 years, I think, in that apartment. There was another time when we hear gunshots. We were hanging out outside, me and my neighbors and friends and stuff, like right outside my house. We hear some shots go off like pop, 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 pop. And then we see a kid. You could tell he was, probably like 15 or 16 years old. You could see him running with the gun in his hand like this. He was running, and he ran right across the street, like right from down the street where a corner was. And I remember he ran in the direction where one of my roommates had just went, and we were worried about my roommate. Like, it's a very memorable thing. And just this stuff happens all the time. And I'm living in Latin America now. I'm in the Dominican Republic in Santo Domingo, and it's just funny, like some of the comments I get on my YouTube videos. Like one of them was like, "Oh, it's so dangerous where you live. Like there's cars near you with tinted windows." And it's like, it is so much safer here from where I used to live. Like especially the neighborhood that I live in here is one of the safest neighborhoods in the city. The one I'm in right now is the tourist district. There are police all over the place to protect us. Like it's really safe. Like from what I hear about in this city, cell phones get stolen a lot. Like people on motorcycles will ride up and take cell phones. But other than that, I don't really hear about too much. I'm sure there are a lot like violent stuff too, but like not where I live. And I lived in the Airbnb I stayed in for a month that I was living. You can see videos that I did in the street there. It was actually probably a more wealthy neighborhood than here, and like that place was really safe too. Like there's really not a lot to worry about here compared to where I used to live. It was way worse. Another thing in Oakland is like you would hear, they call them sideshows. What it is a car or like multiple cars or whatever. They will do donuts in the middle of a public intersection, the middle of the day, night, whenever, over and over and over again. They'll just do donuts like skirt, and constantly from my house. Like this is pretty much an everyday thing. You could always hear a sideshow somewhere off in the distance. Like you could hear the tires squealing, the engine revving. It was just like a constant thing. You can look up videos on the internet of this shit. I'm not making it up. There is a recent thing that went sort of viral where there was a sideshow, and apparently this like a normal just citizen, I guess they hit his car before it happened, but he got mad and went and grabbed like a bucket or something, tried to throw it at one of the windows of the guys when they're driving in the like doing a donut in the circle, and they got pissed off and they ran after the guy.
Hello, bro.
What's up, man? And they went and beat him up a bunch on the ground. They like knocked him out. Like they beat the shit out of him. You can find it. It's a pretty viral, famous video. Just tons of stuff like that all the time. The theft in Oakland is insane. Like you couldn't leave anything in front of your house. Like I got this nice like an oil jug thing to do oil changes in cars. It just collects the oil. And my friend, my neighbor, was telling me, he's like, do not leave that outside without a lock on it. He's like, he had a similar one that actually wasn't as good as mine. He said it got stolen when it was filled with used oil. Like, this is how bad the theft there is. The Home Depot, which actually isn't even technically in Oakland, it's in, what's the city called? Emeryville. There's a Home Depot there, but it's like right on the edge of Oakland. The theft there is so bad, I was trying to get a pipe cut and threaded so I could make a chin-up bar out of it. They told me that the machine was down because there's a part of the machine that just kept getting stolen. And they're like, yeah, I could tell you to come in later to, because you know we're supposed to get the part in. He's like, I don't know, it might just get stolen again. So he's like, you better off just going to a Home Depot and like over in Walnut Creek in one of the nicer cities. Like, the theft there is just so bad. And where I lived, the neighborhood wasn't even like that bad. Like, there are hoods in Oakland way worse than where I lived. The one that I lived in was pretty good, but this stuff was happening right in front of my house. It was just normal thing, the shit that would happen all the time. When I first moved in there, this house has been redone and there's just normal people living in it now. The neighborhood's getting a lot better. But when I first moved in there for a few years, there's one apartment building that people left and then the landlord wasn't doing anything with it. These squatters moved into the building. It's like a 2-story little house, and they were there for I think like a couple of years or something, and like they were definitely drug dealers. There'd always be like a pair of shoes hanging over the power line in front of the house, which apparently, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, what I think that means is like, you know, you can buy drugs here. And every few months a bunch of cops would show up in front of the house with rifles pointed at the house, with like dogs, everything, like a ton of cop cars. I mean, it was crazy. This stuff would happen all the time. I used to grow marijuana for a living, and I would sell it to the medical dispensaries. And I had done it for years and got kind of lazy because nothing happened. But I remember I went to this one dispensary. They told me that same day, and I would quit growing, so I got rid of my car and I had this van. And if you have stuff like that in your car, you always want to have a car with a trunk, with an actual trunk. You don't want like a station wagon or a van or something like that where the trunk is part of the interior. You want a separate trunk because the cops can't search it without your permission, usually that way. It's a lot safer. But I got rid of my car that had a trunk and had the van. I had this gnarly pit bull too, this crazy pit bull. I used to bring him with me when I would go to do this stuff, but I had like 2 pounds of weed in my car and was driving it to one of the dispensaries to try to sell it to a couple of dispensaries. Obviously much smarter to keep my pit bull in my car with me, but I didn't, because like I was saying, I got too relaxed because I'd never had problems. It was actually after I quit growing, is the very last 2 pounds of weed that I had grown, I was trying to sell them. The second dispensary I'd went to, the guy even warned me. He was like, hey, they've been breaking into the growers' cars. When they go to the cars that don't have a trunk, they'll break into them. They'll wait till they go to a coffee shop or lunch or something like that, break in their car and steal the weed. What do? They sit outside the dispensary. It's really obvious the people that are growing, because you know the pounds of weed are big. They'll have like a duffel bag or backpack, shit like that. And I didn't really think much of it. And I went straight to my house. I didn't stop at a coffee shop or anything. I think I even had the guy that would purchase it. I was like, hey, could you help, walk me out to my car for a little extra safety, help me do that to my van. I got home, I was right back, parked. I parked in my driveway, and I was about to go into my front door. And I had the weed in a trash bag. I just had it in a trash bag, and I had each pound in like these big Tupperware things in the trash bag. So it doesn't look like anything. It looks like I'm carrying, like some junk or some clothes or some trash or something. But I hear somebody grab the trash bag. I could feel it or something like that, and I just hear this voice go like, don't try anything funny. I thought it was one of my roommates or friends or something messing with me, like doing a joke. I turned around, it was a guy I'd never seen before. He had a knife in his hand, and at first I didn't let the bag go. I held on to it, but he had a knife, and I thought for a minute, I was like, I just give it to him. I'm like, it's not worth getting stabbed over a couple pounds of weed, like for sure. And then I let go. After I let go of it and he had it, he came up to me close with the knife and he went like this, right where my heart was, just to make sure, it's like to scare me, so I didn't try to go after him and do anything. And it was scary. I was kind of acted calm, but obviously I was scared. My heart was pumping. I don't really know how to fight either. I haven't been in many fights in my life. I'm not that kind of person, very non-violent, very scared of physical violence. And I just let him have it and get away with it. Like, I had thoughts in my mind, like I saw him run down the block. He ran real funny too, like an idiot. And to think about how crazy that is, like to rob somebody with a knife right outside their house. And they must have followed me. It was probably like a 7-minute drive from the dispensary to my house. They could have been following me since the first dispensary I went to. That's also a possibility, which would have been much longer, but they probably followed me from the second one since the guy warned me there. And like, to think about how risky that is to rob somebody like that with a knife. Like, he doesn't know if I know how to fight. He doesn't know if I have like a gun. I had a thought in my head too. I could have gotten back in my van and chased him down and like crashed into their car with my van. I had thoughts like that in my head, but I figured probably better not to do that, because then the cops would show up. It'd be like a big thing. But this is just the kind of shit that happens in Oakland, like all the time. Like, and they're very under-policed in Oakland. Like the people, another thing is people drive like crazy there, and people are almost never pulled over for like traffic violations or petty stuff, because the cops are constantly dealing with violent crimes. Like, they just can't deal with normal things. So like, you can get away with theft and traffic violations, all this stuff. Like, I would drive so carefully there because I was just scared of some crazy driver crashing into me. Like, the cars are stolen all the time, and these kids are like racing them and hot rodding them like around the streets. They're constantly blowing through red lights. Just, you'll see them weaving around or driving, passing each other in the wrong lane on like a normal 25 per hour street. Like, the shit is crazy there. It's absolutely insane. And this is just normal stuff that happens all the time there. And I was trying to think of some other story that I had. There's just so much crap that happened there, like so many stories. Like, oh, another thing, the 4th of Julys are absolutely insane. Like, I'm just in this normal, it looks like a normal neighborhood, except for all the bars, and there's more fences that would be in like a nice part of America. But the houses there, all these old Victorian houses, so it looks sort of like this nice American neighborhood, at least on my block. But on 4th of July, it is like a war zone, like just constant, in the middle of the street, all these crazy expensive, huge fireworks going off. You can look up videos of that too. There's videos like up on the hill of Oakland. It looks down into the city, and there's fireworks going off all over the place. And like, the cops cannot deal with this shit because they're constantly dealing with violent crimes. I remember me and my friends once, we were lighting off fireworks, not on the 4th of July at night. It was like some random night. This cop drove up. He just stopped and talked to us. He was like, "Hey, you guys lighting off fireworks?" He's just like, "Don't do that in Oakland." Like, not here. And he told us he was on the way to deal with a stabbing. Like, I've seen, like on the corners right near my street all the time, I've seen streets just blocked off with a caution tape because there's some kind of stabbing, some kind of murder. This stuff was happening constantly right where I lived. And I did not even live in like the most ghetto hoods, like I was saying. I lived in West Oakland. The way more ghetto hoods are actually over in East Oakland. Like, you drive down East Oakland International, tons of prostitutes. Like, you'll see like 16-year-old prostitutes. It's really, really bad. And when you drive down International in East Oakland, you'll see a ton of cars. There it's worse. You'll just see they'll drive through the red lights. It's just a completely normal thing. One time I was stopped at a red light. I saw a guy drove up onto the sidewalk to pass me at the red light, and I'll never forget it because they did it so nonchalantly. Like, it was just such a normal thing. And like, that's just how Oakland is there. And the crazy thing is how expensive it is to live there. Like, there was a house right across the street from me. My friend lived there when they moved. It's just a normal house. Like, it has a furnished basement, and then a floor above it, and then an attic. So it's not even a 2-story home. It sort of is, because the basement's really nice. It's furnished, but It was very nice, like a hot tub in the backyard. They made it very, very nice before they moved, but they sold that thing for $1.1 million. And I remember, like, right down the street a couple blocks away when the house was like being sold, there was a car in the street that was burnt to a crisp. And there was a car parked in front of it and behind it, and the bumpers were all melted. Like, the car was completely burned down. And like, this is just how crazy it was where I lived. Like, it was terrible. And like, living where I live now is so much better. I'm paying $500 a month, and it's so much nicer and safer where I live now. I would never go back. When I first moved there, the reason that I moved there was just for financial purposes, because it's way cheaper to live there. And when I lived in San Francisco before, I had actually lived in a pretty ghetto area there too, so I didn't really think anything of it, just moving to another sort of ghetto area. It was like, whatever. But I definitely regretted it a lot as I got older, especially since ironically this happened right after I moved, but I got more into working on my dating, and I was going out a lot to nightclubs all the time, and then going out into the city and trying to meet girls. And once I started to do this, I had to travel back to San Francisco to do this, because another thing about Oakland is it's really not good to meet girls. Like, it's a ghetto ass city. Like, there's not a lot of good looking girls living there. You don't just see them walking around normally like you do in San Francisco all over the place. And that was a big thing I regretted moving there for sure. Like, if I could go back in time, I would kind of probably wish I had just stayed in San Francisco and just figured out a way to make it work with a more expensive apartment. Like, if I had stayed there, I would have figured out a way to pay my rent and all that stuff, just like I had done in Oakland, but I would have had a much more prime location and a safer location as well. So I don't know, that's just kind of my weird story about living there. Hopefully it entertained somebody, or hopefully somebody learned something from it.